Welcome back. As this live on Facebook, Maisha Television Kenya. You can engage, you can join the conversation by texting, calling, or WhatsApping our phone number, which is 0746 999 You can also leave your comment on our social media platforms, Facebook and YouTube, Maisha Television Kenya, Instagram and Twitter at Maisha TV KE. We are still talking about the Hustler Fund. Let me start with you, Bushebi Jr.
Yes.
If you are given the 50 billion Kenyan shillings to disburse to Kenyans as a loan, how will you do it?
I will do it the Kibaki way. I will target the SMEs, micro, businesses. I will work with the banks. I'll find a way to give that 50 billion shillings as a loan to the banks at a smaller rate. And I'll be realistic. I might go for like 4% to the banks. And then I'll ask the banks to give that money maybe at around 6-7% interest to SMEs, and so that this money can be gotten back, and at the same time increase the circulation of cash in the economy, because these are the people, these are the entrepreneurs. It's a small percentage in the country, but these are the entrepreneurs that actually move money, and I will do it that way, because my reason is this. Even right now, the Kina Fuliza and wherever the Kina M-Shwari give their loans at around 7%, 6% there. Whoever is telling hustlers that hustler fund is 0.00 whatever 0.002 is a lie. It's only like that for a month. Okay, it's just like that for a month. They have one of the highest interest rates, that is 8.5%, 9.5%. So they're lying to Kenyans that they have a the smallest percentage. Why are they creating this form of traps for Kenyans? So anybody will go for a hustler fund. I'm not discouraging anybody, but I'll say this. Until January, I'm waiting for the SMEs and the micro wherever and the circles to see what the Hustler Fund has. But as for now, these personal loans, I see nothing good about it. But for me, if I had the 50 billion, I would go Kibaki way, because that way it will bring a revolution in the economy. And the uptake of the amount will go higher, because this is a person who owns a saloon. This is a person who owns maybe a motorbike, like you said, and they have an account with a bank. And they go to the bank. We look at the bank. We look at the amount of money they deposit every day, and we'll give them a loan, maybe 50,000 at a smaller, maybe 6%, 7%, and then they're able to pay that money back. With the bank. Kama boda boda anaweza chukua ile pikipiki na kuna systems sijui ya kumonitor ati akijaribu kukosa kulipa, I don't know how it works. Inazimo or something like that. Kuna hizi radio zingine ama sijui ni simu. Okay, you see the systems that these established banks and other entities have. I will work with those ones. Okay, give them money and they will bring my money back. That's all I want. I want my money back, and so I'll give you at this rate, so that you inject it because that way it will help them reduce the interest rate that they're charging people. The reason why we have higher interest rate is because even there's no liquidity. I mean, liquidity ya pesa iko chini, value ya pesa imeenda chini. So people are not doing business. If people did business and actually had enough capital, especially operating capital, we will have a revolution in the economy. We want to boost our GDP. Okay? We want to save more. What will you save when you're hungry? So these are the things that I would do if I had the 50 billion shillings. I'll work with the existing banks and lending institutions in there. And I had a president saying that if you want to work with us, you are now welcome. After they have launched their own, why couldn't he just put those things earlier instead of doing it the other way around?
Well, asante sana for that. Honorable Jafare, if you're given the 50 billion shillings to loan Kenyans or to give hustlers, how will you do it?
If I'm given 15 billion Kenyan shillings, the first and most important that I will do is to look at the individual, the tire. There are 4 tires. The first one is individual. The second one, it is, I think, circles. Yes. There is groups, SMEs, and cooperatives. I will focus majorly on SMEs, cooperatives, and groups. And for the case of the individual hustlers, maybe I'll give them 5 billion only out of the 50 billion, because I know very well these people, they need money. Because we came from the campaign, there's no money because most of the government functions are not running. We are waiting up to January before the government can start and have supplementary budget being passed from the parliament and every county assemblies. So first I will give the hustlers 5 billion only. I'll peg at 5 billion. So this 5 billion, I will know very well, these hustlers will expend, not do business with such amount. So I'll be able to have such a kind whereby you give these people 5 billion and you put something like, you create account whereby bad debts, you expect these people, most likely they will not pay up this amount. So you create a bad debt account whereby 5 billion Kenyan shillings. So you give this 5 billion, then you create a bad debt account of 5 billion, expecting not to get this amount from the hustlers. Then the remaining 45 billion, you categorize in terms of SMEs, the SACCOs, the groups together with the cooperatives. And majorly I'll focus on the SMEs, because if a person, and the registration, there must be a regulation whereby if you've been doing business, you're supposed to be having like 1 or 2 years before you could qualify for this SMEs loan, because it is not okay to give a person who's been doing business for less than a year, then you give him such amount of money, like maybe 50,000. This person most likely not to be able to make profit with such amount. So in my case, I'll do this amount for only groups, SMEs, and cooperatives, no individual hustlers. Maybe individual hustlers just peg at 5 billion. The remaining 45 billion I give to the SMEs. And before SMEs are given money, I will look at how we can look for experts, economic or maybe business experts, who can advise this. So you designate the various experts who can offer technical and managerial support for these individual owners of these businesses, so that they can get the right knowledge about managing their businesses, so that they can grow and be independent on their own. Because we expect, if you've been borrowing for 2 years, we expect the 3rd year you're supposed to be self-reliant. You don't depend again on this kind of money, because if you keep on depending on this hustler fund for maybe for 5 years, then what about other people who are supposed to enter into the business? So as they peg, maybe they put a regulation. If you've been given maybe a loan amount for a period of 3 years, they expect your business now to be self-reliant, not depend on these loans, to be dependent on its own. And that's why I believe in giving people the means so that they can look for their ways, instead of dishing money, hustlers each and every time. So that is my perspective.
Well, maybe just to add on the same, just one thing that I had forgotten. People should go back and study how Equity Bank became one of the biggest banks in Africa. And it was during Kibaki's time. It was out of that model. And remember the people that Equity Bank targeted, the unbanked, those who are in the informal sector. Okay? So once that money is given to, let's say, a bank, and they are able to target, we are saying 83% of businesses in the informal sector. If you can target those people, because the government can't, they don't even know where these people are, but a branch of a bank, they know these people. For example, if it's in Kakamega in a certain area and you go there, they have all your details where you are and all that stuff. So they're able to deal with those guys. Target them. Target the business people, those who are able to pay, because you're targeting 3 things. You're targeting uptake of credit. Number 2, you're targeting repayment, because this money has to be paid back with interest. Okay? And number 3, you're targeting consistency, because you cannot tell me that you'll give me 50,000 shillings once and I'll become a millionaire the next day, or that 50,000 is enough for me to start a business and continue with that business. I need consistency. There's what we call operating capital. Okay? You need this capital almost every 6 months or 1 year to be able to survive. So for me to get this operating capital, this is the system. I'll have to look for a loaning entity or institution, so that I go there and tell them, you know what, I still need I paid the other one, I need to take for the reason of operating capital. There's venture capital or startup capital, like I've even had where you want to start something. Then there's operating capital, where you go and take a loan. Maybe you say, I want to continue, okay, but I don't have operating capital this year. in a year I spend like 5 million shillings in operating capital. You list down your business plan, and this is how you're going to operate, and you tell a bank, and the loan officer looks at it, and they look at your account and how your business is functioning, and they say, actually, you deserve 3 million, not 5 million, and they give you 3 million. And you've seen even people applying for 10 million, and they're given 7 million. Yeah. It's through that process, okay? So with this, you are able to say, we want to bring a revolution in the economy. And how do you create a higher GDP in a country? It is through business. It is through business. And you need these systems. For GDP to grow like the way the president wants, trust you me, he needs to go this way. This other way is like an individual doing business with somebody else. It is not actually boosting the economy. It's minting money from selling a product. Kumbuka credit ni kama chumvi yenye unauza kwa duka. Okay? Na kupatia unanirudishia na profit. Na kuuzia credit. Utanilipa baadaye. So if the government starts doing business with its own people, what about the business people now?
Well, during the launch of the Hustler Fund, the president said that there was about 600 people who are trying to access the Hustler Fund per second. Based on this data, do you think that we have less liquidity in the economy that causes humongous appetite for credit? Let's start with Honorable Jafari.
I don't think so. Maybe if you look at the people who are trying 600 people per second, maybe it might be people who are curious. Most of them, they are Azimio supporters. Even I tried yesterday, if this system works. So I did not need that money, but I tried. Does it work really? And up to today, I have not received that amount. So possibly, out of 600 people who are trying per second, there is a possibility to maybe 300 of them, they are just curious Kenyans to check on whether it is happening. Even I had Edwin Sifuna, senator for Nairobi, was trying to access this amount. So he doesn't need that amount actually, but he was trying, he was being curious. Yes. But if we look at the perspective on how people borrow each and every day from Fuliza, on another perspective, it might be true. But yesterday, it was a demographic that was gotten yesterday. Let's look today. The data today, tomorrow, and throughout the week. Maybe yesterday it was just people were just curious. So let's look at it, give it time, maybe a month, and look at the demographics, the people who are trying to access for a month. Yes. Then we can tabulate the whole issue and say, these are the data that people are trying to access. But we cannot use a base rate of a day to make an assumption that people will be able to access 600 people daily. No, that is not a good assumption. It was just for yesterday. People were just curious, wanted to know if this thing, because President Ruto has been lying to Kenyans, each and every time deceiving Kenyans. So we wanted to know is it really true for this time? Because you remember the time of laptop. During the past regime, they promised laptop, and up to date, the children, they're not got the laptops. So you see, we were just trying if this thing is just workable, and that's the approach. Thank you, Chebet.
I would say that it's true that we have less liquidity in the country. This is what I would say. Credit is not a curse. Okay? Yes. We all need credit because it helps us to move to another level, either of business or something like that. For example, you're operating a business with a turnover of around 1 million shillings per year, and you want to expand your business so that you can be able to make 5 million per year. You will look at what you have, the assets that you've accumulated, both the cash and other things, and then you'll go to a bank or you try to access a loan. So a credit is not a bad thing. You'll go for a credit because you want to boost your business, or maybe you want to start a business and you have some assets, some title deed somewhere, you really want to do that business, you can go for credit. Credit itself is not a bad thing. So when people are trying to access credit, it's not that they have a humongous appetite for credit. Okay, it's just that like we cannot even discuss what happened yesterday, because that in economy, like I said, one rule that people should always remember, there's absolutely nothing like a vacuum. You can never say that there's no cash flow, okay? Because maybe it's not in your area or your sector where you're operating from. But if you go in another industry sector, you'll find that that money is there, okay? Yes. And so that keeps on changing, and you cannot say that since 600 people are trying to access the system per second, they have a humongous appetite for for credit.
Yes.
But I'll say this: this credit thing needs to be put in such a way or in a system where it should be able to help somebody business-wise. Why are we giving people credit? Let's ask ourselves that. Why am I giving you credit?
Yes.
Can we identify the reason as to why we are giving people credit? That is why we have what we call loan facilities or loan products. It defines why you want that credit. Okay? They say it's personal use or SME. Or in fact, when you go to these apps, they usually have those questions.
Yes.
Like, why do you need expanding business? Then you drop down expanding business, pay school fees, blah, 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 emergency and stuff like that. When you go for credit, you have to define the reason why you are going for that credit. And I think that is the question that maybe the Hustler Fund should answer. Why were the 600 people per second trying to access the system? And for the first day, we know that 3/4 of those guys were trying to find out whether this time President William Ruto is speaking the truth. Because all along, they have always known him as a person who says one thing and then comes na kwambia the other thing. So we cannot judge the credit appetite of Kenyans basing on that. But I'll say this, Fuliza, and let's just use Fuliza. You see, Safaricom has M-Pesa, which is already an account. It's like a bank, okay? So Safaricom monitors your account. If you refuse to pay, they can change the rule and say any money that you deposit. In fact, with Fuliza, you'll just pay whether you like it or not, unless you throw away that line and get another ID. Okay, get another ID and buy another one and register.
You will get another ID.
Exactly. So they have a system already in place that can facilitate Fuliza. And trust you me, there is absolutely nobody who will substitute Fuliza for Hustler Fund. They will borrow from Hustler Fund to pay Fuliza and do away with Hustler Fund. Because with M-Pesa, its M-Pesa account does so many businesses. Pigia saizi, hata piga nyumbani. Umuulize tu hii pesa nikuwekee wapi? Kwa namba gani? Just anybody, just ask anybody. We are M-Pesa people, whether you like it or not. Hata kama line yako haipigangi wekangi credit, lakini M-Pesa iko very active.
Lazima ifanye.
Every business is done through M-Pesa. Kuna pochi, neno nini? Pochi la biashara and stuff like that. So with that's what I'm telling you, Hustler Fund is just there to die, to fail. And they will give Kenyans 5 billion and eat 45 billion.
Well, we have this mentality out there. Let me create this scenario where I have a friend who borrowed 100,000 shillings, and with a facilitation fee of about 5,000 shillings, then she used around 40,000 to buy some stuff, TV, home theater and stuff. And this is the mentality that most Kenyans have. What will you tell a Kenyan who has just gotten a Hustler Fund? I remember the other time, Honorable Jawari Jafara said that this is the month of festivity, and most people will be borrowing just to spend. Mshebe Junior said the same thing. Tutaenda tugawane, kila mtu ahombe 1,000 tuangushe mzinga tuchukue. What will you tell a person who has just gotten the 500 shillings from the Fuliza system, given keeping into consideration some of the conditions that have been put for defaulters?
First and foremost, a person, when you borrow money, you're supposed to have that mentality: this amount is not mine. The moment you receive that amount, you're supposed to keep your brain maybe updated. This is not my amount of money. I've borrowed this. And that's where many people fail, because you find you've borrowed money. Then the moment you have many problems, you say, let me go and pigia mwili pole kidogo with the sun. That's the first step that people, it's a wrong move. I remember there's a time I was being maybe inducted by a business person. Say the moment you borrow, let's say, amount like 100,000 from a bank institution, you're supposed to perceive this amount like it is not yours, it is for the bank. But most people, the moment they borrow, they say, this is my amount. You have it is like yours. And I want to give another perspective. People have fuliza. Most people. You find a person saying, I've got a loan limit or fuliza limit of 500 bob. In your mind, the moment before you borrow, you only have amount, you have a certain perspective kwamba you have a 500 bob somewhere, in which is not yours. It is for fuliza. So that it is so hard to change that perspective, unless your mind is business oriented. But in case you've been expending all time, consuming, it is not easy to change that perspective. The moment you borrow that amount of money, you'll just consume. And my advice to people we are about to borrow this such amount of maybe for purpose of doing business, you're supposed to see this amount for purposes of doing business. Do not see this amount of money as yours necessarily. Because if you don't change your mind looking at this amount, you'll just expend it. And the moment you expend it, there's nothing important that this amount will be able to do. And at the end of the day, you'll have to owe this hustler fund. And the interest will come in. So in my perspective, I do not think any person can be able to. It is quite hard to change the perspective. It's quite hard to change the perspective, especially when you are used to not doing business. For a person who's doing business, it is okay because he's used to the mentality. He's already in doing business. But if you've been consuming, it's so hard to change the perspective. Chibet.
Well, asante sana Honorable Jawar Jafare. I would like your opinion on the same, Shebi Junior. What will you tell a person mwenye alipata hiyo 500 na kitu ya kwanza alifikiria acha nibae kanyama ni pigia mwili pole?
I would say this, it is extremely expensive to do business in Kenya. Very expensive. From licensing, taxes, and everything. If you put that in consideration, it's easier to come up with a business idea. Oh, no, nimeona mama mboga ameanza kuuza sokoni. Unajua kanjo anachukua pesa ngapi per day? Unaambia mpe 500 you can go and buy sukuma wiki and then sell it. They're not telling you everything. Okay? They're not telling you everything. That ukifika tu pale kanjo wamekufikia. They're not telling you everything. So at the end of the day you realize this 500 bob actually belongs to the government because they're taking everything away. You buy something, they take taxes. Kanjo ndio wana licenses ndio hizo za kila aina. It is very expensive to do business in Kenya, which simply tells you that you need a lot of capital to stay afloat. Okay? And the business, that is why we don't have a business mentality on a huge percentage of Kenyans. We have the employment mentality. Hata ukiwa mdogo wazazi walikuwa wanakuambia nini? Because huku kwingine ni kubaya, and I will tell you for real, ni kubaya. Si ati wanakudanganya. It is not easy. You can die. We've had so many entrepreneurs committing suicide. Tumeona mtu ako na deni ya 5,000 na commit suicide. It may look simple. Unapata mtu anasema 5,000 tu nijiue. You try business. Try do business. You'll kill yourself over 500 bob. Okay? So you might look at 500 shillings that you've borrowed from Hustler Fund and you're busy shouting, hey, you can start a business with the 500 bob. Hey, you can start, unaweza uza. Enda ubebe sahi maembe uweke kwa barabara tunaanza kuuza. Kanjo amefika. Anachukua hapo 100 kwanza imeenda. Na hauna kwanza yote ulinunua maembe atuuze ndo ulipe jioni. Nakumbuka hiyo pesa sio yako. Hustler bado huko anataka pesa yake ulipe. Okay? And then at the end of the day, there are these teething issues. Unapata hiyo maembe yote hakuna mtu amenunua the whole day. What are you going to do? So can we tell Kenyans the truth? Can we tell them the truth? That is why I'm telling you. That is why unapata the aspect of depression and stress comes in.
Yes.
Ndio mtu akipata pesa anasema wacha nifanye nini? Nijipigie pole. Nimeoteseka hii dunia sana. Na amesahau hiyo pesa sio yake. Ni pesa ya biashara. Another one can be emergency. Okay? You've borrowed money. Let's say 100,000 shillings. All of a sudden your mother is sick. Kwa hospitali wanahitaji 85,000. Mama yako labda anakufa. Anafaa kwenda theater, they need 85,000. You just borrowed 100,000. What are you going to do? Exactly. So these things must be put into consideration. We should not just come out and start telling Kenyans, hey, we have a fund. Hey, guys, take it. Kenyans are going to use this money for so many purposes. And borrow 500 shillings and anakula yote because of not that they want to do it, But the factors that surround the 500 bob, my friend, whether you are doing business or whether you are consuming or whether you're trapped. In short, you are trapped. So what is the solution? This is the solution. And I said it some time back in one of the shows. I say this. What if out of 50 billion, 7 billion can be injected in TVETs, okay, colleges, to teach entrepreneurship? Tell Kenyans the truth. Entrepreneurship ni mawe. It is hard. You need knowledge. You need to learn from those who failed a million times. Okay? Instead of just training people, throwing them out there in a job market where there are no jobs, and then you say, now because there are no jobs, they're going to give you 500 bob to start a business. Where? Did you ever teach me how to do business? No, you taught me engineering. You taught me to be a teacher. Now you're telling me, you're giving me 500 shillings to start a business. You never taught me how to do business. You taught me to be a teacher. Okay? I know how to teach. I don't know business. Business? What is business? What is entrepreneurship? You're calling me an entrepreneur. What is it? Okay? That you are the CEO of your life. What is CEO? What are the responsibilities of a CEO? So these things are not taught anywhere. Okay?
Exactly.
They are not taught anywhere. Why not take, instead of throwing this cash out there, why not even go to villages or groups, spend even 7 billion in training? I think that is where we should have started. Put this money in TVETs, in universities, in colleges, facilitate entrepreneurship. And when I talk of entrepreneurship, I'm not just talking about, like kuuza na kununua. I'm also talking about scientific entrepreneurship, where you train people to be innovative. I can come up with a patent for something. I can create, like the one who discovered light bulbs. Saizi anakula pesa na alikufa. Musicians, they die and they still make money. Why can't we invest in such things and train musicians, somebody with a talent, on how to do business? Because they can sing, but they don't know business. Anaenda nakalishwa kwa business table, they don't know what to say. Anakuwa ripped off. Hata ajui, yani hana idea even how the industry works. Yeye kitu anajua ni kusema nikikupea 500 utawezana, utawezana. Nikikupea 500 utawezana, utawezana. Nikikupea, that's what they were singing.
Exactly.
Ati president niruhusu leo nikuite nani? Kondo. Those are the things. And by the way, you hype up the young people, they go for this money with zero knowledge on business, zero knowledge on entrepreneurship, on being a CEO, on what it takes to build a business. They have no experience of any kind. How do you expect them to put that money in business? They will end up buying muzinga. That is consumption. It's a trap.
Fair enough, Bushebi Jr. In Hustler Fund, there is no CRB listing. The other day, Jafari said that we have positive and negative, but for defaulters of the Hustler Fund, there is no CRB listing. But if you don't pay, it affects your credit score. Let's talk about this credit score. Do you think this works for economies like for Kenyans, because credit score works well where liquidity is seamless? Do you think that the credit score will will be functional in Kenya's economy? Let's start with Honorable Jafar.
We want to talk about the issue of the credit score in terms of liquidity. First, we have a problem with the money supply. That we talk about liquidity. Liquidity is whereby we have more money in the economy. And at the moment, we have less because there are no other activities happening. Because mostly we depend on the government in terms of its expenditure purposes. From the budget, the supplementary budget, the amount that is budgeted, almost 32% of the whole budget of government goes to other activities, maybe development activities, apart from the recurrent activities that happen for the government, which takes about 62%. So we can say at the moment there's no money. Money supply, it's quite limited. And we expect the government to, through other channeling of putting the money in the government, to have money supply. And at the same time, there are banking institutions, which all commercial banks, which help the government in terms of channeling that amount towards the economy. And at the moment, I'm told that the banking rate has been increased. I think to 13%.
Yes,
people 13%. At the moment, it means if you borrow, you'll have to pay more. So it scares away the people from borrowing. mostly people not be borrowing. So if people don't borrow, it means there's no liquidity, much money in the economy. And if there's no much money in the economy, people will go for other, like Fuliza, like mobile lending institutions. Maybe we say hustler fund. And if we have a hustler fund now, we depend on the credit score of a person. You find you've borrowed this amount of money and will not be able to pay within 14 days. It means your credit score has been reduced to a certain amount, but still you can borrow. If maybe the first time you borrowed 1,000 shillings and you fail to pay for a period of 14 days, it means it affects your credit score. Next time you'll be able to borrow less than that amount. If you'll be able to borrow less than that amount, it is a kind of regulation that the government has put on these people so that they cannot borrow more money. You remember the time when there were the financial report of Safaricom. They say the people borrowing from Mshwari is roughly 55 billion Kenyan shillings per month. And the whole of Hustler Fund is roughly 50 billion. So if people decide to borrow from the Hustler Fund for a period of 1 month, they can deplete the amount that is intended for the Hustler Fund. So possibly, I think there must be a regulation. If you've borrowed and if you fail to pay, there must be a pegged regulation on the amount you can be able to access in terms of credit. So that you cannot, for example, you've borrowed 500 bob, you fail to pay within the first 14 days. It is not likely that you'll be able to borrow more in the next 14 days. The amount must be pegged down something like 300 bob. So that you cannot use that amount of money to do consumption, and yet you're supposed to pay the other amount. So in my perspective, I think the best way is to look at the credit score of every individual. In terms of maybe if you fail to pay this amount, your credit score has got a negative rating. Therefore, you are not supposed to borrow more money for the purpose, because you're not doing any business. And for the people who are doing business, they're supposed to borrow more. So in my perspective, I think the best way for the government to have a regulation of the whole Hustler Fund is to put a peg regarding the credit score in terms of activities. And they also have to look at the activities that are happening in your M-Pesa. For example, if you've not been borrowing, if your M-Pesa has not been receiving any amount for a period of 1 month, then how do they expect to give you money? It means you are expending, but there are no receipts. There's no money you are receiving in your M-Pesa account. So possibly there's no activity you're doing in terms of business. So you should not be given that amount. And I think that is what the Hustler Fund is going to look at before you're given. They will have to monitor the activities through the M-Pesa now. If you have more activity, they'll give you the money. If you don't have the activity, the amount of money will be reduced.
On the same, do you think that
maybe just if you repeat
the credit score, because in case you default the Hustler Fund loan, it affects your credit score. Do you think that these will work for economies like Kenya?
First of all, CRB, if you look at CRB, the success of CRB in Kenya is almost at only around 7%. CRB hasn't really, affected the economy. And I say this because Kenyans, like I said, 83% of liquid cash is in the informal economy, the informal sector. Credit score works in more, it's something that was borrowed from the Western countries, like the United States, where there's a seamless flow of cash. And by seamless, I mean in every sector of the economy, there's almost a constant flow of cash. Okay? But when you look at the economy like Kenya, like Jawari said, just to add on something little he said, we have liquid flow, seamless in some sectors. Okay? Ndo utasikia mtu anakuambia siku hizi industry ya hii haina pesa, so tumeamua tu shift business yetu tuende kwa industry nyingine. Huko ndo iko pesa. So that is how the economy of Kenya works. So people follow the liquid cash instead of the cash flow to be rotating in all industries. It only rotates seasonally in an industry and then disappears. Okay, so we don't have a seamless flow of cash. That makes it impossible for a worker to be paid timely. For example, a worker is supposed to be paid at the end of 30 days.
Yes.
We've had cases, even rugby players of is it Shuja? Yeah. They have not been paid for 3 months. Okay, so that means there wasn't flow of cash in that area for the last 3 months. Okay, supposing they had borrowed the Hustler Fund, 3 months defaulters. Okay, yes. So we don't have a seamless flow of cash. It works in Western economies and established economies where cash flows. That's why you find in a country like United States, somebody can have 6 jobs. Okay, I will work here for 2 hours. The moment you finish your 2 hours, you're paid your money. Okay, you leave, you go in another place, you work again for 2 hours, you paid your money. At the end of the day, unarudi nyumbani na some $1,000 or $500 you've made during the day. So pesa inatembea, and it's not just in one industry. You go to hospitality industry, you go to transport industry, energy industry. Pesa iko inazunguka tu all over. Okay, so that way there it can work. You even go to that is why credit system works with them, such that if you are listed on CRB in America, for example, you are not able to get a house to rent because the what do we call them, the landlord or landlady has your credit score. Okay, you defaulted on a loan that you took somewhere. How sure am I you're going to pay me rent? So unapata everywhere you go, everyone is looking at your credit score. Okay, yeah. Because everyone is mindful of the seamless liquid flow. Okay, they know there's a liquid flow. So if any action that I take, for example, I take you in nikupatie nyumba na mimi kumbe ndio ninaenda kukata flow ya pesa because you're not going to pay me, they avoid that. So that was the intention of CRB. Okay, so that kama ume default Safaricom maybe Mshwari, ukienda kurent nyumba, landlord anaangalia anasema na Mshwari bwana ujalipa rent ndio utanilipa. Unaona? But that doesn't work in Kenya. So in short, it has failed. In short, it has failed. It needs to be relooked at so that we see if this credit score works. Look at Zenka, look at Tala, look at all these lending apps. People just default. You default on Tala and borrow on Zenka. Okay?
Life is going on.
And life goes on. Hata nimeona comments watu wakiweka kwa social media, mtu anasema, people are saying, guys, you should be afraid of Hustler Fund. Wana kama tumesurvive Tala, Hustler Fund ni nini? Which means CRB haitishi mtu. CRB haitishi wa Kenya. CRB watu wamekuwa listed on CRB. But bado pesa ina flow. Haitishi Mkenya. So the credit score really doesn't matter. That is why even Hustler Fund doesn't care about it, by the way. It doesn't care about credit score because it has no effect on anybody. It only has effect on a bank. If you go to a bank and you want a loan, ndo watangalia uko CRB. But ukienda kuchukua nyumba ya rent, landlord atangalia CRB uko CRB ama hapana. No. So
it's also the system.
So the credit system, the credit score in Kenya only works for banks. And that is not the intention. The intention was to help the economy have a seamless liquid flow such that kama wewe ni defaulter in one area, you are a defaulter in everything. So unakataliwa kabisa hadi urudi umalize ile deni ingine, so that we don't have a lot of defaulters. But kweli, surely in Kenya has it worked? It has not. So CRB has failed.
Well, asante sana Bushebi Junior, and I think we're going to stop there for today. But before we close the conversation, I will allow my guests to have an opportunity for closing remarks. Let me start with Honorable Jawara Jafar.
Yes, my closing remark goes to the senatorial race that is coming. We're supposed to vote on 8th of December this month. We already started the month.
Yes.
And we believe those people, they've already campaigned, these candidates have already done their best in terms of campaigning. Recently, I saw a few in dancing festival, doing some music, dancing, ulabalus, with the voters of every region, in Matulo and other regions. So we believe they have done enough and they have done their best. And we also expect the voters to come out in large numbers and to beat that perspective kwamba watu wataweza kuvote because tuliweza kuvote tena. We believe that the right person will be able to win in terms of a senator, and we'll have the best from 9th of December. Thank you. so much, Tibet.
Asante sana, Honorable Jafar.
I think I will do mine by quoting Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who before even the launch of Hustler Fund, he said, I want to advise those who are not hustlers to just distance themselves from the Hustlers Fund and let all critics, theorists and analysts give the hustler nation a break. All said and done, I would say Hustler Fund is just one of the funds that has come into the market. It's how you beat the system. Borrow that money, but know exactly what you do with that money. It's the most important thing. If you consume that money, it's up to you. If you put it in business, whatever you want to save yourself in a business here, whatever you do with the money, it's up to you. At the end of the day, it's all up to you. You're the board, you're the committee, you're the CEO of your own life. And one last call, which I'll keep on telling precious government and President William Ruto and his government, please spare some billions of shillings for entrepreneurial courses in our education system. Teach Kenyans how to do business. It is not enough that you came from being a chicken seller to become who you are today, and all that knowledge is only with you. It can be passed on, and the only way that that can be done is by injecting good amount of money into these school systems and platforms where teachers can teach our children and the nation on how to become entrepreneurs and how to make profits and how to pay their taxes and how to increase the GDP. This is not popular. It's not popular at all. So if you can do that as a government, I will be grateful, very grateful. Many Kenyans will be grateful.
Well, asante sana. Thank you so much, Honorable Jafari, for your time.
Thank you, Chibet.
Asante sana, Bushebi Jr.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much to our viewers. As Honorable Jafari said, on 8th of December 2022, Bungoma residents will be going to the ballot to elect their senator. This is after former Senator Moses Wetangula, who is currently the National Assembly Speaker, resigned to vie for the Speaker seat. And we have about 9 candidates vying for the seat. We have 2 candidates from Kenya Kwanza Coalition, one Azimio la Umoja, one Kenya Coalition, and also we have independent candidates who are vying for the same seat. So on 8th of August, I will urge Bungoma residents to go to the ballot, elect your senator. It is your decision at the end of the day that matters. It doesn't matter if you voted on 8th of August or you did not vote. Make sure on 8th of December you go there and elect your senator. The decision is yours. Thank you for staying with us. You've been watching PLG, Politics, Leadership and Governance. My name is Rida Kering Chebet, and much appreciation for always choosing Maisha Television Kenya. We value your feedback, so you can talk to us by texting, you can call, or you can WhatsApp our phone number, which is 0746 999 841. You can also message us on our social media platforms, or you can leave a comment on this program, that is Facebook, YouTube, Maisha Television Kenya, Instagram and Twitter at Maisha TV KE. My name is Rida Kering Chebet, and today in studio we had Bushebi Jr. together with Honorable Jafari. Until next time, enjoy the rest of your viewing.